Hey guys, I just wanted to put a little disclaimer here before this video to let you guys know that I was in the middle of making this and they actually put out an update that changes a couple of things that I'm going to talk about. That said, it's still like 99% accurate because the patch was pretty small and I've added little notations on screen that will come up when something is changed between updates. Anyway, onto the video. Hey, what's up guys? It's a mild inconvenience here, and it looks like I finally found it in me to make another video for the first time in, like, what, 3 months? Anyway, so today I'm going to be talking about a game that I actually really like a lot, one that most of you probably already know about, TF2. But I'm not going to be talking about what I'll be referring to as retail TF2. No, today I'm talking about TF2 Classic, a fan mod made with the intent of reimagining what the game could have been had Valve taken a, let's say, less drastic approach to making changes to the game. Although that's not to say TF2 Classic lacks drastic changes. In fact, the mod introduces a huge number of new gameplay features I'll talk more about later. So, why would someone want to go through the effort of having to go to another website, downloading the game, downloading the appropriate source development kit, and manually installing the thing? Well, retail TF2 is in a, let's say, less than fantastic state at the moment, plagued by aimbots, spam bots, and just about every other kind of bot you can think of. Valve, in their infinite wisdom, decided the best way to deal with the bots was not to ban them or update the now ancient Valve anti-cheat system. No, instead they decided to make the big brain choice to just disallow free-to-play players, likely the majority of the player base, from using chat at all. This actually includes the in-game voice commands as well, and has significantly lowered the quality of life for many players. Retail TF2 has also been in somewhat of a content drought that has been ongoing for well over 1,000 days at this point, or 867 days at the time of recording if you count Blue Moon as a major update, which most don't, because all it included were a couple of admittedly much-needed balance updates that were lacking in Jungle Inferno, and the ever-present cosmetic cases. Since then, however, the only new content we've gotten is hats. Lots and lots of hats. All of which Valve fully expects you to gamble for, and most, if not all of them, weren't even made by Valve, but rather by the community. But anyway, this isn't a video about modern day TF2, so let's get into the real topic of this video, TF2 Classic, and what it does better and worse than retail.
Victory!
First and foremost, TF2 Classic is a whole lot of fun. The game feels fantastic to play, and so far I've had exactly 0 performance issues while playing normally. And yes, the game offers ample opportunity to play, well, let's say less than normal game modes. In comparison to retail, Classic not only runs a whole lot better, but actually looks better as well. Modern TF2 has actually undergone a whole host of visual downgrades over the years to make room for more hats. Speaking of hats, as fun as visual cosmetics can be, I actually see it as a good thing that they aren't present in Classic. Many, and I do mean many, of the visual cosmetics in retail TF2 clash really hard with the art style. Without them there, the game overall looks much cleaner. Textures and particles aren't the only visual improvements in the game either. There's one thing that's always bothered me about TF2, and that's the inability to naturally set your FOV higher than 90. Well, in Classic, that's no issue. Honestly, just playing on 105 FOV has made me never want to go back to retail. It's that much of a game changer. The options in Classic are also much more organized and easier to adjust things than on modern TF2, with the added option to use the current options menu if you prefer it for whatever reason. The mod in general has a much higher quality of life to it over retail TF2. There's no need to hope for weapon drops or to buy them because all the different weapons are unlocked from the start. All the servers are community servers with the exception of a few official ones, and as a result it seems like cheaters are more easily taken care of. In my time playing Classic, I have run into exactly one cheater who was kicked fairly quickly and I have yet to meet again. Another small quality of life feature that many people seem to forget is this little screen right here. Being able to pick your team. It can sometimes be a lot of fun to play against your friends, something you don't really have the option to do in modern TF2 unless one of you happens to get auto-balanced. Speaking of auto-balancing, the option to scramble teams is standard on most servers here, including the official ones, so situations where one team absolutely steamrolls the other are typically swiftly dealt with by a vote which almost always passes. Voting is also brought back to the way it used to work in the older days of TF2, where you can vote to change maps at any time. Say when someone votes for an absolute, unredeemable, complete steaming pile of shit map that no one should ever be forced to play, or alternatively, if you're on a map you like, you can vote to extend the timer to keep on playing it without being interrupted by annoying loading screens every other round and having the whole lobby leave. Honestly, Valve, Meet Your Match was a mistake. Please bring the old way back. TF2 Classic also introduces a lot of content that was cut from the initial release of the full game, for better or for worse, but we're only talking about the good things in this section of the video. So what kind of cool stuff did Classic bring back? The big one here is VIP. This game mode is absolutely fantastic and some of the most fun I've had in this game ever, certain maps excluded. Essentially, the way the game mode works, for those of you who don't know, is one player on blue team gets to be the VIP, and it's the job of his team to escort him to various capture points on the map. Kinda like Payload, except the only player that can cap is the VIP. When the VIP dies, at least on most maps, 20 to 30 seconds is removed from the clock. You aren't entirely useless playing as the VIP either, just existing near your teammates will offer them a 20% damage reduction, and you're able to give one lucky player mini-crits every 25 or 30 seconds or so, and the buff lasts about 15. The VIP uses the unused civilian model that was originally supposed to be in TF2 but was cut before release, so visually he fits in right with the rest of the game. On top of that, he's also fully voiced, so all of his voice commands work. This is not the only new game mode either. Classic also introduced Domination to TF2, working much in the same way it does in Call of Duty, where teams compete to capture points that will add score every few seconds or so. Not only that, but some of these maps have 4 teams, red, blue, yellow, and green. This game mode has given new life to one of the weirdest maps in the game, Hydro. Instead of restricting you to segments of the map like in Territory Control, Domination opens up the full thing for unadulterated 64-player chaos. So I've talked a lot about what is in the game, but let me take a second to talk about some of the things that have been removed that have actually improved the experience quite a lot. TF2 has a lot of really annoying weapons, many of which range from super annoying to just outright overpowered. No more worrying about whether or not that spy is actually dead or not because the dead ringer is not here. Also, no more dealing with invincible tank sentries because the Wrangler is also absent. TF2 Classic only brought back a couple of weapons from retail, and some of them actually got small stat changes to make them less of a direct upgrade and more of a side grade. For example, Medic's Uber Saw made it back into Classic, but now lowers the player's max health, making the weapon riskier to use for the immense reward it offers. On the topic of weapons, Classic added a number of new ones, many of which have their own issues, so in this section I'll only talk about the good ones. Medic got a new melee weapon that enables you to heal a teammate to full overheal in less than a second by meleeing them, and it also deals increased damage to enemies if charged, but it's on a 30-second cooldown and significantly lowers your ability to defend yourself if it's not at full. While not a new weapon per se, Demo Man was given access to gunboats, making blast jumping with the sticky launcher a lot safer at the sacrifice of losing a lot of his offensive capability by ditching the pipe launcher. Engineer has been given a new pistol that you can charge to do more damage and it bounces off walls. If you overcharge the weapon, it can also be used to blast jump, allowing you to reach places engineers were never meant to go, leading to some interesting possibilities. Matches in general feel a lot more competitive than in retail TF2. I won't say the average player is any better, general skill seems to be about the same, but by virtue of this being a mod that you have to go out of your way to download, basically all of the people playing have spent some time in retail TF2, resulting in everyone at the very least knowing how to play. No more clueless free-to-plays who stare at walls or get lost on even the most linear maps here. And as amusing as players like that can be, having one on your team can completely lose you the match. While TF2 Classic is undoubtedly a very fun mod, it does unfortunately suffer from its fair share of issues as well, both big and small. So, what sucks about the game? Well, I'll start small and move on to the bigger things later on in this section. First off, before even getting to play, the download on the website only allows you to use Mega, with no mirrors officially listed. The problem with that is that Mega has an artificial lockout for downloads, only allowing you to download 5 GB of data every 6 hours without an account. The game is thankfully under 5 GB, but both me and one of my friends ran into an issue where we got locked out due to not having enough space on the drive we initially tried to download the game to, forcing us to wait out the 6 hours or find a mirror. We did eventually find a mirror, but it was on a sketchy looking website. Thankfully though, it seems to have worked out okay, and this is admittedly a pretty minor gripe, but a legitimate one nonetheless. Moving on to issues actually within the game, one of the first things you'll notice upon launching is the game is loud. Like, really loud. Just look how low I had to set my volume sliders to get the thing down to a bearable noise level. Voice chat is also really quiet, even at max volume, and this is an issue in retail TF2 as well, but the fact that it exists in Classic is pretty disappointing. The default settings are also pretty much the same as in modern TF2, so there's much that needs to be changed, and it legitimately took me 15 minutes to go through and set things up to even be playable. There's also a general lack of officially supported servers in the browser. Currently there are exactly 3, of those only 1 is a standard server, and it is almost always full. And for whatever reason they decided to make it 25 slots, 24 for players and 1 slot that I assume is reserved for admins. This seems fine at first until you realize that you actually can't auto-queue for it because the game will attempt to connect you and then auto-kick you due to slot reservation. The other 2 official servers are an exclusive maps server, which only allows you to play on the new maps that they have added, so other classic maps such as Upward or Badwater are not playable here, and lastly a 2007 server which emulates the game as it was in, well, 2007. 2007 servers are neat for a couple of minutes until you realize that the state that TF2 first launched in is, well, pretty bad. Many mechanics we take for granted these days, such as air blasts on the pyro or being able to move buildings as the engineer, are not present in 2007. Most of the community servers aren't particularly great either, often missing basic things such as a vote to change the current map, which can lead to issues such as CTF purgatory where there isn't a map timer. Many of those servers also lack a vote kick option, leaving you with no choice but to play with AFK players or particularly toxic individuals. Another gripe I have with the game is that Engineer actually has super expensive teleporters for whatever reason, more than twice the cost in normal TF2. 125 metal for a teleporter is really steep, and honestly I don't know why they decided to have it be that way. A pretty big majority of the new maps range from being kind of meh to being unbearably mind-numbingly bad. VIP in particular suffers from this due to having a very limited map pool for the game mode. As of right now, only 4 maps are available on the official server, and there is only one good one, and it's just Badwater, a Valve map. Most of the VIP maps actually share the same issue as well in that they are just too easy to defend. Mindside, for example, requires the offense team to escort their VIP, who actually has to carry an intel briefcase on this one for some reason, to a capture point that is behind the defensive team's spawn. Harbor is pretty okay for the first 2 points, but once it gets to the final point, it is almost impossible to capture it. This is due to the only ways into the final point being extremely tight choke points or an open balcony that they have to try and jump down. On top of that, this window in particular allows the defensive team to just spam explosives out, making it difficult for the offensive team to approach from this entire side of the map. It's so bad that in the dozens of matches I've played here, I've seen the offensive team win exactly once. Both of these maps, however, pale in comparison to the complete and utter failure of game design that is Trainyard. On this map, if the VIP dies once, the round is over. If your VIP isn't careful, a spy or a single crit rocket can end the entire round in literal seconds. This map is so awful that the only conclusion I can make as to how it made it into the game is that it wasn't playtested at all. The problem with the map is so glaringly in your face that whoever decided this was a good idea should really be ashamed of themselves. On the 64-player maps, everything works correctly most of the time, but there are noticeable issues when lots of players end up in the same area. The game was, simply put, not meant to support this many people. The game will often start lagging server-side, resulting in potentially unplayable gameplay. While having support for this many people to play is a nice idea, in practice the game just can't handle it. On the bright side, bad maps can for the most part be avoided. Do you know what can't be avoided? The new weapons. Some of them have shown to be pretty good inclusions. Many of the others are either useless, unfun to fight against, or break the design philosophy of the game itself. One of the biggest offenders here is the RPG, a new weapon added for Soldier that incentivizes actually missing your target. It has an absolutely huge 30% damage increase, resulting in it doing even more damage than the direct hit, but with the same blast radius as normal rockets. It also fires in an arc, making it the perfect weapon to spam out enemy players from across the map, and even results in some pretty dumb strats on certain maps. Like this spot on Upward, where you can kill enemy players while just spamming from the safety of your spawn. When crits, the thing does up to 435 damage on a direct hit, which is enough to kill anyone in the game except for a fully overhealed heavy. If there has ever existed a no skill free kills weapon, this is it. On top of it, the RPG also steps on the toes of an existing class that is built around indirect splash damage, Demo Man. Speaking of Demo Man, he was given 2 new weapons, one of which I would basically never use over stickies, being the mine launcher, which only allows you to have 4 mines out at once, with the only benefit being auto detonation. The only use I could ever see someone really getting out of this is if they want to play Demo Man, but feel that pressing mouse 2 every once in a while is just a bit too involved of a mechanic for their capabilities as a player. The other new weapon is the Dynamite Pack, an equally brain-dead piece of shit that you can just throw out every so often and hope that someone is dumb enough to stand on it. Throwable explosives such as this were actually left out of TF2 for a reason. Valve was originally going to have them in the game, carrying them over from Team Fortress Classic, but ended up cutting them for exactly the reason I stated before. They just didn't want to encourage players to toss them out and hope for a lucky kill. Sniper was given 2 new weapons as well, one of which is pretty bad, mostly due to the fact that it makes you take mini crits when you have it out, with the only benefit being it slightly bolsters your melee capabilities. And the other weapon is, well, completely broken. The hunting revolver is an absolute monster of a weapon. Remember when people talked about how overpowered the Ambassador was in retail TF2? Well, I like to think of this weapon as an Ambassador on steroids. It has a scopeless zoom in, allowing you to see everything in front of you, even when zoomed, and 6 bullets in the chamber, and has a pretty swift fire rate. It has a hidden 20% damage penalty, but that doesn't balance it at all. A decent sniper can use this thing to absolutely dominate the enemy team, spamming out 120 damage headshot after headshot. But wait, there's more. Not only does it bolster the offensive capabilities of the sniper, but it also boosts his defense, giving him an extra 25 health. This gun is disgustingly powerful on the same level as Soldier's new RPG. While many of these new weapons are extremely unfun to fight against or are just outright broken, I have saved the most annoying one for last. This gun is quite possibly the least fun thing to have used on you in the entire game. The Trank Gun for Spy. This thing is just stupid. The other guns on this list, mostly, have ways that they can be fixed to be more fair, but this one is just completely unredeemable. So what makes it so awful to fight? First off, it turns your game grayscale, making it difficult to tell what team the other players are on. Additionally, it also slows your movement speed by 50% for the time that it is active. Worst of all, though, it slows the speed at which you can turn by 50% as well. In a movement-based shooter like TF2, I can think of nothing more annoying than being hit by a gun that takes your movement away. And that's made even worse by also taking away your ability to even aim properly. The gun isn't overpowered, it isn't even the best option in the slot in my opinion, it's just simply unfun to play against, which is the worst thing a weapon can be. Also, if you play heavy, you get the same treatment in this mod as you get from Valve. No new weapons for you, bud. Get fucked. So, on a whole, how good is TF2 Classic? Is it worth downloading? Is it worth playing? I'd say, yeah, probably. It has its issues, but to be honest, I've had a lot of fun playing this mod. I was actually on a pretty long break from TF2 after getting fed up with all the bots and lack of support from Valve, so playing this has been a breath of fresh air. There are definitely some improvements that need to be made, but on a whole, I think the good outweighs the bad here. It also looks like we have more to look forward to from this mod, since on the FAQ on their website, the devs have stated that they will continue to make more content in the future. On the topic of the website, I've linked it in the description down below if any of you want to download the mod and check it out for yourself. Well, that's it for this video, so be sure to like, subscribe, whatever. You guys know the drill.